Hello. In this video we will continue working with our ColorPicker app. Our goal in this video is to add the alpha value and to add the labels on the side so that we can display the actual number where the sliders are at. This is video number 4, so you need to have watched video 1, 2, and 3 to see where we are at this point. So we need to add another slider. To do that, I'm going to bring my utility area, but I'm going to switch to the editor view first to make some space. And bringing my utility, I'll look for the slider control and add another slider for the alpha value, which will determine the transparency level of our app. Switching to the attribute inspector on the utility area to the right, allow me to give that slider distinct information. It's still a 0, 1, and I want the default to be, for the alpha, I want the default to be 1. And the minimum track, I'm going to use the black for the alpha. Actually, I need to switch that to black. And the maximum, I will leave that to be white. And the thumb, I will make that black. So here is my alpha. Then after I add the slider, which will give me a user interface, I need to connect this slider to my view controller. Every component where you want to read data from or change its data or attributes, you have to connect it to the controller as an outlet. So I no longer need my utility. So from the show and hide the utility area, I need to bring in the assistant editor so I can see my view controller next to my view, and I probably don't need the my navigation area, so I can hide my navigation area by going to the top right and hide the navigation area. So select my my slider, hit the control key and drag from the slider to anywhere between the interface and the end, and release. And this connection is an outlet connection, and I'm gonna call this slider alpha and then connect. So now I have 5 outlets, meaning that 5 components on the user interface where I exchange data between the view and my controller. And I have only one action, which is all the sliders are connected to this change color module. There are 3 actions, and then I want to add the 4th. So this action module, the change color, we call it method. I want to connect this to the alpha slider. So drag from the change color to the alpha slider, or you can drag from the alpha slider and drop on the change color, any one of the two. Right, now you hover your mouse over the change color, you can see it is connected to the change or to the action, change value action for each one of those sliders. After making the outlet connection, I need to switch to the the implementation file. So I can go back to the editor view, and I can change to implementation from here, or I can bring my navigation area and change the implementation. First, I want to make sure I sanitize the slider alpha. So I will come after the slider green and add slider alpha and then comma, so that I'm sanitizing that property as well. As we discussed earlier, the implementation is where you provide the instructions, which is a line-by-line instruction that informs the processor of what to do. There's a one overall module, which is the implementation module, which starts from line 12 all the way to line 38 in my screen here. Inside it, there are three modules. The view.did_load module, which begins on line 15 with this, what we call the signature, as well as the body. Every module has a signature and has a body. Every module has a signature and has a body. The body is signified by an open curly brace and ends with a closed curly brace. The module starts with the dash indicating the scope of the module, then the return value of the module and the name of the module, and then if the module receives any parameter. There are two modules that we call life cycle module, the view.did_load and the did_receive memory mourning, and then there are modules that we create connected to an action, and there are modules that are not connected to any action. Previously, we used a constant value for the alpha, which is 1.0. Here we want to change that by retrieving the value of the slider. So to retrieve the value of the slider, I send a message to the slider by indicating open and closed square bracket. Every instruction ends with a semicolon. Enter the alpha slider name and then the value. As you can see, the value returns float value. Float is a keyword that signifies a memory location or a memory or a type of data that requires a decimal number and requires memory location suitable to hold a decimal number. Since the value, when you ask the alpha slider to give you the value, it gives you back a number. You need to save that number somewhere until you use it in the next instruction. So as we did with the previous sliders, we saved it in a memory location. So I use the assignment operator to assign that value that is I retrieved from the alpha slider to a memory location of type float. So the float specifies the type of the memory location, and the name I'm giving to the memory location is alpha value. So this sentence here says, or this instruction, go to the slider alpha or send to the slider alpha a message get value. The slider alpha will give you the value. Assign that value to a new memory location or a new variable called alpha value of type float. Now I can use this instead of the constant. So now 1 is constant. Every time you run this program, the value will always be 1. And I will replace this with a variable value, which is alpha value, which means at the beginning of the program, I don't really know what the value of alpha value is. But as the program runs, the value will change. Let's run and try that. It's loading the simulator. So once you make a change to any of the sliders, you start to see the color. Now see the effect of the alpha. As you reduce the value of alpha from 1, the color becomes transparent until it becomes the same as the background color. So that's the value of alpha. Now the challenge with this application so far is while I can guess what value it is, I can see this color and I like it, but if I want to use this color, I don't know what is the red, green, blue, or alpha values. So I would like to add a way next to the slider to display what number or what value this slider has. And that's what we will do next. To display a value, I'll take you back to project number 1. There was a component that we used to display a value, and this component is a label. So what I need to do is to add 4 labels, one for red, one for green, one for blue, and one for alpha. Then I need to construct a text made out of the number of the alpha here and put that text inside that label. So let's go ahead and do that together. I'm going to bring my navigation and move to the storyboard. With any feature that you want to add to your app, it starts by adding it to the view. looking for a library component. So we'll look here. Here is my label, and add that label to my view, and then position the label where you want it to be positioned. So here is my label. I don't want any text in that label, but I want the color of the text in this label to be the same color as the slider. So I want this to be a red color. Then I want to add another label. I don't want text in that label. And I want the color here to be green. Then I want to add a third one. And notice that I moved the label to align with the one on the top and the sides. And this will be blue. I think this is a lighter blue than the one I'm using. And I don't want the text. And then finally the last one. And this will be black as it is. I don't want the label text in it. And for the font size, probably want to reduce that a little bit to make room. What did I have it here? 12, so I'll make it 12. And the last one. Alright, so I added my view 4 new components of the label type. Now, I want to put text in that label. Every time you want to add data to a component or take data from a component, you need to connect that component to your controller as an outlet. And if you want behavior, then you connect it as an action. So I take away my utility, I don't need it, and I want to bring my assistant editor, and then I want to connect each one of those labels as an outlet. So control, drag my label here, and I will add it as an outlet. I will call it label red. And I will take my green, and I will add my green here, and I will call it label green. Then I will take my blue, control, command Z to undo, control, drag, and I will call this label blue. And then the last one is control, drag, label alpha. So now I have defined 4 outlets for the sliders, 4 outlets for labels, and 1 outlet for the view where I'm changing the background color. Still, I have 4 actions. All 4 of them are connected to the change color. So now what I need to do is I want to go to the implementation, and as I retrieve the value of the sliders and construct a new color, I want to construct a text and then put that text in the label red, label green, label blue, and label alpha. So let's switch to the implementation. So I'll go back to my single editor, click on the implementation, and I don't want the navigation to make some room. And here is the area to retrieve the value. I use the value construct digital color, and then I want to use the value also. So I will add here, I will call it 2.5. Or maybe I can add it after changing the color. So I will add it as a step number 4. Use the values to construct strings representing a 2 decimal point number for each slider value. Why 2 decimal point number? Because I don't really need more numbers than that. I'm just pushing this down so I have some room. I don't need more than the 2 numbers. In order to construct a string, we ask ourselves which library can allow us to construct a string. As you build your vocabulary, you will learn about them, but there was one from project number 1, which is the NS string. So I want to know that I'm going to send the message to the NS string. Every time you send the message to a component or a module, you go and create a string. You create square brackets, end with a semicolon, the name of the component or the object that you are sending the message to, in this case NS string, and then you want to construct a string. To see a list of all the messages that you can have or you can send to an NS string, you can type in any letter, and then Xcode will filter all the messages that starts with that letter. You can then delete that letter and see a filter of all the messages. You see the scroll here on the side, and you can scroll down. These are all the messages that you can send to an NS string class. Every time, if you want to know what a message is about, you select, and then it gives you above here a description, and you can click more, which will take you to the documentation. I know that the message we are looking for is a string with format, which is the same message that we constructed last time in the last project. But in the last project we constructed a message made out of a string. This time we're constructing a message made out of numbers. So click on a string with format. It tells you that you can specify the string format, and I forgot to show you something. So let's try this again. A string with format. Notice a string with format returns back something. That something is also an NS string, although it says ID, which ID is a generic type for that can hold different data, but this one returns a string. So I have to take back that string and assign it or save it in a memory location until I'm able to use it to set it to the label. So string with format. And then the formatting here, I use the @ to specify the format string. And what is the format string? I use a % to indicate that this string will retrieve a number that comes after that format string. I use a dot to specify a decimal point. 2 to say I want only 2 digits after the decimal point. F to say this is a decimal number or expect a decimal number. And you see here it gives me a warning saying that you said in your format string that you're going to use a number. Where is the number? So you use a comma to indicate that you're going to enter a number. And what number I want? Let's start with the red. So I add the red value. So now this message that I'm sending to the NS string library or class or object class, it's gonna take the red value and format it in a string that has a 2 decimal point. Now I need to save that string somewhere, so I use the assignment operator, and to save this as a string I use the NS string star space and then give it a name. So this one I will call red string. So I constructed the red string that will be made out of the red value. Now I will need to repeat this for each one of the other 4 numbers that I have. So now I'm just gonna type it directly now that I know what I want. So I will go for a blue string, and the blue string will take a value coming from the message string with format that I'm sending to the string class, and specifying a point to F, and I will use here blue value. Same thing for the green string. The name you provide for that memory location can be anything you want. It is recommended that you use very explicit name so that you can understand what it is about. Every time Xcode suggests something to you, use the suggestions. So I will call this alpha string, and then this is the instruction message, and then I will say string with format, string with format. Where is the string? Here it is. And then I'll say this is point to F and alpha value. Now that I constructed all 4 strings, I can then, as I did in project number 1, send the message to the label and tell the label put that string in or display those strings. But before I use the label, every time I create a property, I have to synthesize that property. So that I'm gonna add another line because I don't want to make this a very long line, but you can just make more commas. So this will be label alpha, label blue, label green, and label red. Every property you create, you have to synthesize here. Now, some people will say you don't really have to. There are ways around it, but as a beginner, this is very explicit way that make you understand what's happening, and I will recommend that you use that explicit way. Then I can use step number 5 to set the text on each label to the string that we created in step 4. So to set the text, we did that in project number 1, and with everything else, you're sending a message. To send the message, you use a square bracket with a semicolon at the end. So let's start with label red, and the message I sent to label red is set text. You build your vocabulary with experience. You can look up the documentation. You can look up what we did before. And what string do I want to set the text to the label? It is red string. Now the same thing is going to go for each one of the other labels. So now label blue, set text, and this will be blue string. Then the third one will be label green, set text, and then green string. Then the last one, label alpha, set text, and this will be alpha string. So let's see if this will make it work. So now move the label. As you can see, once you start moving the sliders, it activates the change color action, and in the change color we are doing those 5 steps. You see here the numbers showed, and maybe it says very small because I made it like size 12, so maybe we need to increase it to a larger size. But now you know that this color, if you like it, you can take those values and go in your software or anywhere else and use that color. So this will be the end of this task. Our next task in the next video is to create another view so we can take that color and use it in another view in any way we want. So next video we will talk about how we set up navigation and work together on creating our first multi-view app. Thank you.